What is going on, everybody? Hopefully you guys are staying safe, and welcome to another episode of Overheat Gaming on YouTube. In a prior video, I used this Pokemon tin to pull a shiny Pokemon card that would end up being my starter in Firered version. All this to start a randomized Nuzlocke adventure, but things didn't really go as planned. We ended up pulling a Toedscruel EX, which yes is shiny, which is awesome, but not available in Pokemon Firered. So I decided to use Toedscruel's long lost relative, Tentacool, as my starter. Unfortunately, our new and improved Toedscruel had a little bit of a rough start to our randomizer. We lost our first rival battle to an Oddish. Then we couldn't even catch anything to add to the team. I was gonna live stream this series, but then decided to make this video instead. The rest of this video gets pretty crazy. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more. It really does help out the channel a lot. So after starting off the game with such bad luck, we end up getting a lucky egg from the Viridian Forest, just what we needed. A lucky egg is a very rare item used to help level up your Pokemon, and our Toedscruel definitely needed it. Its best move is Poison Sting, and we almost lost the very first trainer we battled. Fortunately, we made it to Pewter City and our first gym leader, Brock. And of course he wasn't gonna make it easy for our little Toedscruel. He leads off with a bulky poison type Swalot that walls off our Toedscruel very well. I had to level up Toedscruel all the way to level 19 to learn Acid because that's the only strategy that I could do to win. I needed to go for Supersonic and then hope that it hurts itself in Confusion and then go for Acid. Swalot having Yawn did not help at all. When I tell you that this battle with Swalot took 30 minutes, I literally mean 30 minutes. This battle would have been impossible if it wasn't for Supersonic. Poison Sting and Acid were never gonna cut it, but thankfully, Swalot finally succumbed to its confusion. And there's nothing that can be worse than that Swalot, right? Wrong. In comes a ground type Camerupt, which is super effective against our Toedscruel. And this thing has magnitude, one magnitude above like a 6, and we're done. I had to use a similar strategy like I used against Swalot, confuse it, but this time I could also poison it. Thankfully, it never went for magnitude and only went for tackles, but one tackle broke through and knocked me to 2 HP. I healed knowing that the poison would finish it off and we get our first gym leader victory. We head east to get our first encounter and we get Silcoon. You know what? I'm not even gonna complain. At least we'll easily be able to catch this and add a member to the team. We do, and I nickname it May after May's Beautifly in the anime. I checked May's ability and it ended up with huge power. This ability doubles the attack power of the Pokemon. A great ability on kind of a weak Pokemon, but I'll take it. We end up at this random Pokemon Center where you can buy a Pokemon. This guy tries to hustle you and sell you a $500 Magikarp, but this is a randomizer, so we get an Ampharos. I nickname it after my dog Weasel because she kind of looks like a weasel and kind of looks like an Ampharos, you know. Weasel has the Drought ability, which makes it sunny in battle every time you send it out. And in no time at all, May is evolving into a Beautifly. We got our first evolution of the randomized Nuzlocke. Now it's time to enter Mount Moon and get our next encounter. It turns out to be one of my favorite Pokemon of all time, Lombre. I'm pretty sure nobody has ever said that sentence out loud. We quickly catch Lombre and nickname it after one of my subscribers, Gary. It's nice to build a party after where we started. We leave Mount Moon and immediately can encounter our next Pokemon. And it looks like we're going noodling as we encounter a Whiscash. Unfortunately, it was never gonna survive a critical hit gust from May. We arrive in Cerulean City and the only thing on my mind is revenge. Undercold leads with Kingler and I lead with May. Kingler had a rough go of it as May had Absorb. There was really nothing that Kingler could do to May that could knock it out. Undercold then goes out to Bagon and I was kind of worried about Dragon Rage, but a couple gusts knock it out. Undercold then goes out to Ekans and it does get the poison off. But honestly, there was nothing that was gonna stop May's massacre. Lastly, Gloom comes out and it's time to finalize the revenge sweep on Undercold Gaming. And to add insult to injury, it was a super effective critical hit that finished the job. After the battle, it was already time to get our next encounter. We get a Breloom. Breloom is one of my favorite Pokemon from my favorite generation, Gen 3. We nicknamed Breloom Liz Jr. after one of my subscribers. Now let's take on Misty, the water-type gym leader who sends out a Dustox. Dustox's Gust attack did decent damage, but Swift attack ended up taking care of it. Next up for Misty was a mighty Gyarados, pretty fitting for Misty. Gyarados was doing so much damage with Thrash attack that I had to switch into Weasel for a couple of super effective Thunder Shocks. That battle was scary. I was really worried we were gonna lose Liz Jr., but that would never happen. Anyways, on to our next encounter. We pull a Wobbuffet. Now this thing is kinda scary to battle. As long as we don't get a critical hit and it doesn't use counter, we should be fine. Well, we have our first death of the Nuzlocke. Liz is gonna be so mad. We do end up catching Wobbuffet, and Wobbuffet is one of my dad's favorite Pokemon, so I'm gonna name it Carlos after him. We finally make it to Vermilion City, and we have a bunch of encounters. The first of which is in Diglett's Cave, and we get a Charmander. Charmander was my first Pokemon I've ever got in any game. We catch it, and we nickname it Isma after one of my subscribers and Pokemon Club members. After that, we can already encounter our next Pokemon. We get the unique Pokemon Mawile. In this game, Mawile is not a fairy type and it doesn't get the best moveset, but I've never used one in a game before, so let's do it. I nicknamed Mawile Johnny after a subscriber and a fellow Pokemon Club member. It only took a few battles for Isma to evolve into a mighty Charmeleon. We finally have a full party of 6 and they keep getting stronger and stronger as we go. Before I knew it, it was time to explore the SSAM. And guess who we bump into? Our old pal Undercold Gaming. He now has a Slacking with a randomized ability. Stat-wise, that's basically a legendary Pokemon. It's time to go out to Old Reliable, Supersonic, and Poison. I was starting to get flashbacks of Brock's Swalot. Like with Brock, this battle took forever, and it didn't help that Slacking had Slack Off, which healed it. Once we take care of Slacking, I switch back into May, and Undercold goes out to Wailmer. But May's huge power gust attack proved too much for Wailmer. Undercold then went out to Ditto, and I thought this was going to be an easy matchup, but Ditto almost got us with our own gust attack. If Ditto's Gust was a critical hit, May would have been gone. Of course, Undercold's last Pokemon is his ace Gloom, but again, it was no match for May. Our reward for a hard-fought battle? Rubbing a seasick captain's back? Okay, we make it to Vermilion City Gym. It's time to take on Lieutenant Surge. He leads with a Slack Off, thank goodness it's not another Slacking. Gary's Swift Attack makes quick work of Slack Off. But in comes another Gyarados. I switch in Weasel for another Thundershock Barrage. Gyarados' Thrash Attack is doing less than half health to me, so as long as it doesn't land a critical hit, we'll be fine. It lands a critical hit and we are not fine. Weasel goes down and I switch into Toedscruel. I try to poison it with Poison Sting, but it doesn't work, and Thrash is doing way too much damage. So I switch into Johnny, hoping the Steel type defensively will neutralize the Thrash attacks. Thankfully it worked and we can finish Gyarados off with Cut. I send in Gary and Lieutenant Surge sends in Squirtle. Luckily a couple of absorbs took care of Squirtle pretty quick. That battle was bad, but I feel like it could have been a lot worse. We got the Thunder Badge to show for it though. Backtracking north a bit, we can get our next encounter, Corsola. Corsola is another Pokemon I haven't really used in a game before. We quickly catch it and I nickname it Bloke after another one of my subscribers. Now it's time to head through the rock tunnel, and the one thing I didn't grab was the HM for Flash. I can't see nothing in here, but that's okay, I've been through this cave a million times. We find a Growlithe and I nickname it P after my dog, but I don't think I'm gonna add it to the party. We make it out of Rock Tunnel and end up in Lavender Town, one of the spookiest cities in all of Pokemon. And well, what do we find in the Pokemon Tower? Undercold Gaming. Another battle commences. Undercold leads with Squirtle and I lead with Isma, but I quick swap to Toedscruel. Squirtle was no match for our Toedscruel. But Undercold must have been studying our battle against Brock because he sends out a Camerupt. This time we're prepared. We have Bubble Beam. Undercold goes out to Sableye and I hard swap to Bloke so Bloke can get some experience points. I go out to our Gloomstopper May as Undercold sends out Gloom. Undercold's last Pokemon is a fierce Sharpedo, but Sharpedo was no match for May's Mega Drain. After the battle, Toedscruel finally evolved into Tentacruel, an upgrade that we really needed. We finally make it to Celadon City and I immediately go to this building to get our free Pokemon. Unfortunately, it was a Hoot. We won't be adding Hoot to the team, but we can still go to the Celadon department store and purchase a very important item. We buy a majestic looking water stone and immediately give it to Gary to evolve him into a Ludicolo. Just another powerful member that we needed to add to this team as we take on Erica. The 5th gym leader leads with Cyndaquil and I lead with Gary. We knock out Cyndaquil with a couple of Fury swipes. Next, she sends in a puny Zubat. I thought these were supposed to be gym leaders, not gym pushovers. Am I right, guys? Please like and subscribe. I send out May as Erica sends out her Dustox. May uses a powerful gust attack and proves once again she might be the MVP of the squad. We defeat Erica and get the rainbow badge and head to Team Rocket's hideout. There I find this very powerful choice band. This item powers up one of your Pokemon's moves, but that's the only move it can use. Since we've been wrecking shop with May's gust attack and it already has huge power, I give it to May. May might be an Avengers level threat right now. We make it to Team Rocket's final boss, Giovanni. His main goal is to steal everyone's Pokemon and sell them for money. He leads with a thick Snorlax and I go out to Isma, but I hard swap into May. After Snorlax used rest, it only took a couple of gusts to knock it out. The next matchup was Toadskrull versus Azurill. I wouldn't even really call this a battle. One Bubble Beam wiped Azurill off the face of the earth. Then comes in Tangela. Tangela was a lot more bulky, but still no match. We beat the Mafia boss Giovanni, and he seems to drop something on the floor. It's the Sylph Scope. We can use this to encounter Pokemon in the Pokemon Tower. And we get a Machamp, another great Pokemon to add to the team. I nickname it after the People's Champ. Immediately after that, we get another great evolution. Isma evolves into a Charizard. The Pokeflute Snorlax encounter is the next Pokemon we can catch. And it turns out to be a Rhyhorn. Now listen, I was playing this game really late at night. May has been overpowering everything. It slipped my mind that Rhyhorn has a really high attack stat and is quad super effective against poor May. All it took was one Rock Blast critical hit to end May's run. Not gonna lie, that death hurt. May might have been the strongest Beautifly of all time. We catch the Rhyhorn and I give it a very fitting name, Grim. We head further south and we're able to get an old friend as an encounter. It's the return of Bob from my Pokemon Red Let's Play. I honestly wasn't sure if we would even be able to catch this Mew, but we catch it on our second Great Ball. And of course I had to name it Bob. This is probably our third Bob the Mew of our channel. We enter Fuchsia City and it's time to take on Gym Leader Koga. This ninja gym leader usually specializes in poison types, but now has a legendary Kyogre. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I go for the Poison Sting Poison Strat again. Kyogre's body slams are doing way too much damage to Toadskrull, so I switch into Bob. Bob doesn't have the best moveset right now, but a pound does the job. Next, Hypno comes out, but it's no match for Bob's Mega Punch. I switch the Rock in for Bob. Before the battle, I put the Choice Band on the Rock, so now the Rock's People's Elbow Karate Chop will do mega damage to Mighty Anna and Vigoroth to end the battle. We now have our 5th gym badge, and just a couple battles after, Grim evolves into Rhydon. I catch word that Team Rocket is up to no good once again, so we head to another hideout and look who's here. You'd think Undercold and I would work together to defeat Team Rocket, but I guess not. He leads with a little Pichu and I lead with Bob. Of course, one Psychic obliterates Pichu. Undercold starts playing mind games and sends in a Combuskin. Combuskin is the evolved form of my favorite Pokemon, Torchic. We show no mercy, but I make sure that Combuskin didn't feel a thing. Next comes in Octillery. Unfortunately for Undercold, we land 2 critical hits in a row, and we knock out Octillery. I get Isma some action as Ledian comes in. Due to the effects of Drizzle on the battlefield, Isma's flamethrowers don't do as much damage, so it takes 2 flamethrowers to bring down Ledian, but it's no problem. Undercold then sends out his newly evolved Blossom, his starter. Blossom was able to take a couple of hits, but we get the victory. This guy must have been amazed watching me destroy Undercold. He wants to give me a Pokemon for free, and if it's for free, it's for me. We get a Flappy to replace our Weasel Ampharos. We made it all the way through the hideout to face Giovanni once again. Giovanni leads with a Kecleon and I lead with Isma. Kecleon's slash attack almost brings down Isma, but we power through with a flamethrower. Don't ask me why he brought in a grass type Weepinbell to go against Isma, but he didn't last long. Next comes in a Houndour, a fitting Pokemon for Team Rocket, and it's gone. Last comes out Roselia, and Isma is able to complete the sweep of Giovanni. Hopefully that's the last time we're gonna have to deal with him. We finally make it to the Saffron City gym to face the Psychic type gym leader Sabrina, and surprisingly she leads with the Psychic type Hypno, and I lead with Grim. With Grim's attack stat being so high, Rock Blast does massive damage. She sends out a Jolteon and I know it's gonna try and use Double Kick, but Grim's defense stat is also crazy high as well, so Double Kick does nothing. A Rock Blast quickly takes care of Jolteon. I switch into Bob as Machop is coming out. We really are one-shotting literally everything as Psychic does its job. I switch back into Grim as Sabrina's last Pokemon is Venomoth. We get yet another one-hit KO as Rock-type moves are super effective against Venomoth. And just like that, we finally have our 6th gym badge. We make it to one of my favorite places in all of Pokemon, Cinnabar Island. Here we get to take on the first Fire-type gym leader ever, Blaine. Blaine leads with an Unknown and I lead with Toedscruel. As if Unknown was a Fire type, it gets knocked out with one Surf. I switch out to Grim because for the second gym leader in a row, they have a Jolteon. And just like last time, the super effective double kicks do nothing and we knock it out with Rock Blast. I switch into Gary because Blaine is bringing out a Swampert. And Swampert was never going to survive a quad super effective Giga Drain. For Blaine's last Pokemon, I switch into Isma and he comes out with Smoochum. Would this baby Pokemon be able to take a super effective Flamethrower? No. And just like that, we have our 7th gym badge. We have to go all the way back to Viridian City to get our last gym badge. And this gym looks very familiar. It's modeled off of a Team Rocket base as Giovanni is our last gym leader. Why, Iota? How many times do I have to teach you this lesson, old man? He leads with Seadra and I lead with Bob. Bob's Psychic proved too much for Seadra. I switch out for Gary and Giovanni goes into Sudowoodo. I don't even remember the last time we took any damage, but Sudowoodo goes down. Giovanni then brings in an Apom, but again, no match. Igglybuff, no shot. Bye. Lombre had a little bit more defense, so it hung around for 2 hits instead of 1. Wow. And just like that, we have all 8 gym badges and can challenge the Elite Four. The Elite Four are the 4 most powerful trainers in the whole region, and I must defeat them in order to become champion. The first Elite Four member is Lorelei, who is normally an Ice-type trainer. She sends in a Meowth and I send in Isma. Meowth was barely able to survive 1 Flamethrower, but this might be a good thing because we forced her to use her full restore on Meowth. After that, it only took 2 slashes to knock it out. I switch into Bob because a powerful Raikou comes in. I use Psychic, but it barely does a third of its health. And Raikou has Rain Dish. Because of Bob's Drizzle, it heals a little bit of its health. I set up Tail Glows to raise Bob's special attack. I want Bob to be able to one-shot anything that comes out, and we're able to knock out Raikou with 1 more Psychic. In comes Scyther, and immediately she tries to set up some double teams. All it takes is 1 Psychic to land, and this Scyther's done, and we do. Next, we get a Blast from the past as we have to face a Beautifly. Obviously, this Beautifly wasn't even as close to being as powerful as May, as it goes down in 1 hit. I guess Lorelei has most of my dead Mons on her team as an Ampharos comes out. This Ampharos outspeeds Bob, then knocks it to 31 health with a Thunder Punch. It was a good thing that we used those Tail Glows. We knock it out with 1 Psychic. We would have had a problem if we didn't. And there you go, we defeat the first Elite Four member. I'm not sure if we're supposed to talk about the next Elite Four member because it's Bruno. It looks like he's been hitting the weight room since Encanto came out. He goes out to a little Magby and I lead with Isma once again. Unfortunately for him, it was only 1 critical hit slash that finished Magby. Then Bruno sends in a mythical Celebi, and I'm thinking its part grass type of flamethrower should do the job. No, Celebi's special defense is off the charts. Bruno then retaliates with an ancient power which is quad super effective to Isma. Ouch, I was not expecting that. Then I do something so dumb that it almost cost us the whole battle. I use Slash, Celebi tanks it, but then goes for a Future Sight luckily. That would have knocked out Isma for sure. Bruno goes for a full restore to get Celebi to full health, and I use Flamethrower. I'm not messing around anymore. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, get taken out by a high-powered flamethrower to the face. I have to switch out Isma due to health reasons, and I go to Toedscruel. Bruno brings out a Gorobus. I use Poison Tail, but it literally does no damage, and Gorobus raises its defense even more. My goal is to poison it with Poison Tail, but we get a lucky critical hit. It then uses Baton Pass and switches into Smoochum, which is a lot easier battle. Gorobus comes back out and I think I could knock it out in 1 Poison Tail, but I don't. Then magically it has Psychic and knocks Toedscruel all the way down to low health. I have to switch into Bob here, and Bruno goes for a full restore. I use Mega Punch, but it does little damage. I'm starting to think that this is the most powerful Gorobus of all time. It goes for a Hydro Pump and puts Bob below half health. I send in Gary, who I thought would finish it off with Giga Drain, but of course it survives with like 1 health and Baton passes into an Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl survives 1 Surf but does massive damage with an Ancient Power. Thankfully only 1 one more surf took it out. Gorbis comes back in and we take it out quick. Now I understand why we don't talk about this guy. Professor Oak's ex-girlfriend Agatha is next. Or maybe it's complicated, I don't know. She sends in a Muck and I send in Isma to start things out. 2 flamethrowers bring Muck to the red, but a sludge bomb does decent damage. Then of course Agatha uses a full restore. It takes 2 more flamethrowers and a slash attack to bring down Muck. I go into Gary and luckily a little Totodile is next. Finally an easy battle as Giga Drain was all it took. I send out Grim as Houndour comes in. Houndour's crunch attack does a decent amount of damage as our special defense is terrible on Grim, but you already know 1 Rock Blast is all it takes. I quick swap back into Grim as Kabutops comes out. Giga Drain comes through once again. I switch into Bob for our last Pokemon, Arbok. 1 Psychic almost finishes Arbok, but a Mega Punch does. And we finally beat Agatha. And the last Elite 4 member is Champion Lance. Lance is always a tough battle, but let's see how the randomizer does it. Lance starts out with a mighty Nidoking and I go into Isma as always. I have to hard swap though into Gary. Unfortunately, Nidoking's Thrash attack does massive damage to Gary. But luckily after healing a little bit, 1 critical hit Surf was able to take out Nidoking. I switch back into Isma to take on his Vileplume. Luckily we get a critical hit Flamethrower and knock out Vileplume very easily. Then Lance brings in a Chansey. Chansey has the Drought ability which powers up our Flamethrower. Lance's next Pokemon is a Metagross, which normally would be very scary, but Isma's got this. A Drought fully powered Flamethrower brings Metagross down to 1 health. Thankfully we're able to finish Metagross with a weak slash attack. Lance's last Pokemon is a Shuppet that we easily take care of with a Flamethrower and get our victory. Lance then informs us that we would have been champion if it wasn't for one person who just beat Lance before we got there. Undercold. This is it, the final battle of the game. This is truly how I invoke my revenge. He beat us with his Oddish in the very first battle when we met. And now, in our very last battle, we're determining the champion of the whole region. Here we go. Undercold leads with a Magneton and I lead with Isma. Possibly the best matchup we could have gotten. We use 1 Flamethrower and boom goes the Dynamite. I switch into Grim as Minun comes in. I don't have any ground type moves, but I can throw rocks at it. It survives the first onslaught, so I just throw more rocks at it. Eventually it goes down. I switch into Gary as Omanyte comes in, knowing that my Giga Drain is quad super effective against Omanyte, being a rock and water type. I send in Toedscruel when the impossible happens. Undercold really has the gall to send in Torchic, the mascot of my channel, my favorite Pokemon of all time. It's time to end these mind games with the Surf. I switch into Isma as Illumise comes in. I ran out of Flamethrowers, but Fly was just as effective. Then it was time for Undercold's ace, Blossom. I used Fly, which did a little bit more than half, and then Blossom goes to paralyze me. Blossom heals with a Citrus Berry, but it wasn't enough as Fly goes in for the victory. We did it. We are champions of the Kanto region. Thank you to everybody who watched this randomized Nuzlocke of Fire Red. And if you made it this far, make sure you double check that you left a like and you're subscribed to the channel for more. This video took a lot of work and I'd greatly appreciate it. I will see you guys next time. Peace.